That's true.
Thank you. Chair, continuing to hear evidence from bereaved families, we're now going to hear from Melanie Leahy, who will be giving evidence this afternoon about her partner, Colin Flatt, who died on the 7th of September 2021. If the witness could be sworn, please.
Pardon? I, Melanie Leahy, swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Could you first please state your full name for the record?
Melanie Jane Leahy.
Thank you. Melanie, you were asked by this inquiry to provide written evidence under Rule 9, and you did so in a witness statement dated the 1st of September 2025. You should have a copy of that in front of you. Do you?
Yes.
Thank you. If you could turn, please, to page 111. We can see that on that page, you made a statement of truth. I'll wait for you to get there, I'm sorry.
Get there in a minute.
It's not quite at the end, so you've got to go back a few pages.
Yep.
On page 111, you made a statement of truth, and that is where you signed.
Yep.
Are you content sitting here today that the content of your statement is true and accurate?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, Melanie, I know that you have some opening words. Before we begin, I want to note a couple of matters with you about your evidence so that things are set in context for those listening. The first is that we understand that the inquest into Colin's death has not yet been heard.
Correct.
And it's now listed for August 2026. That will be an inquest under Article 2. And the reason I note that now is because you tell us in your witness statement that you would like to submit further evidence once that inquest has been heard.
Yes.
You also tell us that you have some concerns about giving your evidence about the circumstances surrounding Colin's death at this stage and in advance of the inquest. Is that right?
Yeah, only that preemptive answers could be given, but at the end of the day, the truth is the truth.
Preemptive answers could be given. Tell me, what do you mean by that? Are you talking about the evidence you're giving today might assist people in other proceedings
Absolutely.
to come up with explanations?
Yeah.
That's your fear. I understand. I want to note also, please, that although today you are giving evidence about your partner Colin, you are also, of course, the mother of Matthew Leahy,
Yes.
who died in November 2012, aged just 20, at the
Yes.
Linden Centre. By 2021, when we come to the events of Colin's illness and the circumstances leading to his death, would it be fair for me to say that your campaigning efforts for an inquiry into the circumstances surrounding your son Matthew's death were fairly widely known?
Absolutely.
And certainly that was the case in Essex.
Absolutely.
One of the reasons that we note that now is because you tell us in your witness statement, and this is a theme that will emerge as we go through the events of those months and Colin's care and treatment, that you consider that your campaign around Matthew's death had two particular effects. The first is that you think that it affected the way staff in the various trusts and, in fact, in the care homes treated you.
I need to correct you in I think.
Of
I
course,
don't
please
think.
do.
I know.
The second is that you tell us that, in fact, by association with you, in other words, by his association with you, you consider that your campaigning and the wide knowledge of it and the recognition of you as Melanie Leahy, in fact, negatively affected the care that was taken of Colin.
Yes.
Two other matters. You have relied, I think, in part, as far as is possible in your witness statement, on records that have been reviewed by your legal team, including observations, medical records, and prescription charts. But we note that you want to make very clear that the records you hold currently are incomplete.
If we're talking for EPA, we do not have any observation records.
Thank you.
We are missing key medication, pharmacy charts, and drug control books off the ward, and probably other things.
You tell us, I think, that your efforts to obtain those documents continue.
We've been told we've got all they have.
I see. And what are your thoughts on that response?
I think it's quite plain, you know, that there's a drug book, a main drug book on every ward. I saw staff filling in observation sheets day after day.
Yes.
Not one sheet has been produced.
I understand. Thank you. I want to take you also, please, to another document that is important, and it will become clear why. Throughout your witness statement, you refer to a niche report, or you quote from it certain excerpts. That report is dated April 2025, and I understand that it was commissioned by NHS England. That came about, and you must correct me if I have this wrong, because there was no serious incident report in Colin's case.
Correct.
And what you were initially told was that there would be effectively an in-house investigation.
I believe it was going to be started, but it would seem that the Director of Nursing was actually in charge of Colin's care. It was her that was going to do it. And then
And you go ahead.
And then it moved on to the CCG, and again it was going to be in-house. And there was no SI done, no 45-day report. I've not seen a 7-day report, nothing. So, yeah, I had to fight, but took it to NHS England and it was commissioned.
What you were fighting for, is this right, or is this a fair way to summarise it? It was an impartial, independent report.
Yes.
You tell us, and it's important to note, that there are two sides to this. You have obviously reviewed that report in detail. You consider it to be, I think you describe it as robust, wide-ranging and detailed.
Yes.
But you note that it doesn't tell the full story.
Absolutely not, because like any investigation, this one included, the terms of reference are limited as to what they investigate.
And I think, in fact, you made repeated efforts to have those terms of reference expanded further.
Yes.
So that other areas that are not, in fact, examined in it would be examined.
Yeah.
But those were unsuccessful.
Yeah, and niche will say themselves, we cannot investigate everything. So, you know, I'm glad that we have this process now. Maybe we'll bring some more out.
Yes, thank you. Last, before you move on to your opening words, and then I understand that you're going to read an opening section of your witness statement to us, I want to acknowledge that you came before the inquiry in September 2024 when you gave commemorative and impact evidence about Colin's death and about the effect on you and the family. We thank you for that evidence and for your evidence today. So when you're ready, if you go ahead with your opening words.
Okay.
Take your time.
Thanks. Chair, when I address this to yourself, I also address this to the nation. Today marks a deeply personal and historic moment for me. After 13 years of campaigning for truth and accountability following the death of my son, I appear here today before the Lampard Inquiry into the death of my partner, Colin Flatt. This inquiry exists because I refuse to give up. For those who don't know, I am the mother of Matthew Leahy, who died in November 2012 whilst detained at the Linden Centre in Essex. My beautiful son Matthew was just 20 years old when he was found hanged 7 days after being admitted to NHS mental health care, the very place that was meant to keep him safe. Instead, it destroyed him and it destroyed a part of me. His death was entirely preventable. When I begged for answers, I was met with silence, with lies and doors slammed in my face. But I couldn't walk away. I couldn't let Matthew's life or his death be forgotten. I had made a promise to my son and I would expose the truth. So I began to fight. At first it was just me, a mother demanding truth, but over time others stood beside me, families, campaigners, journalists, solicitors, charities, patients, staff, and eventually politicians, people who cared enough to see what I was seeing. For that, I am forever grateful. One of those people was Colin. He came into our lives when Matthew was 9 and became a constant source of love and strength. He helped raise Matthew and later stood beside me in the long fight for truth after Matthew's death. Neither of us could imagine that years later, Colin himself would become part of the very story this inquiry is now examining. He helped me fight for truth, not knowing one day I'll be fighting for him too. Since Matthew's death, I have faced denial, cover-ups, intimidation, and even death threats. And I was once arrested simply for publishing the truth. But I refused to be silenced. From my kitchen table, I built a campaign that grew into a national movement. I worked with bereaved families, patients, charities, journalists, legal teams, whistleblowers. Together, we uncovered hundreds of deaths and failures within Essex mental health services and beyond. We stood outside Parliament, gathered signatures, met ministers and refused to go away. In fact, 105,580 signatures on a petition, and I wish to use this forum to thank every single one of those people that signed the petition. In 2021, an inquiry was finally announced, but it had no powers. So I carried on. And in 2023, the government had no choice but to agree to a full statutory public inquiry. This very inquiry, the Lampard Inquiry. I will tell Matthew's story in full when I give his evidence later next year, but today is about Colin, the man who helped me fight for this inquiry, never knowing he would one day be part of it too. This has always been a fight born of love. That love has carried even more loss, including the loss of my partner. I now fight for them both, for Matthew, for Colin, and every life lost or broken by neglect or indifference. The journey has taken everything, but I will not stop. Because truth matters, love never gives up, and justice must come. Thank you all.
Thank you. I understand that to take us into the evidence that you're going to give about Colin, we're going to start, and for those called participants following, we're going to start with you reading from paragraph 4 on page 1 of your witness statement to the end of paragraph 8.
That's a lot of reading.
Would you like to read it, or would you
Yes,
prefer for me to
absolutely.
read it?
No, I waited for this day.
You go ahead.
Colin was my partner of 19 years. He had been a professional footballer in his early years and subsequently a very successful businessman. Together, we were leading a full and happy life. We had both worked very hard all our lives and were looking forward to what would have been for him his golden years. We had many plans, including travelling the world together, and all this came to an abrupt and brutal end, courtesy of the so-called professionals who were meant to provide care and treatment. Colin and I trusted them, although that was hard, but we did, to give him the medical care that he needed. For reasons that I do not think I will ever understand, He was instead subjected to the most appalling neglect and abuse imaginable over a protracted period of time, which ultimately resulted in his death. I firmly believe that, but for the numerous and gross failings in the care and medical treatment that Colin was subjected to, he would be here with me today. I believe, and the evidence submitted to this inquiry, both the information contained in my statement and documents listed in the appendix will confirm this, that those meant to be looking after him made Colin suffer unnecessarily and willfully hastened his death. The records, the body maps and the documents I have submitted show one side of this story. But what I bring to the inquiry is the other side, what I saw, what I heard and what I know. I was there. I witnessed Colin's suffering with my own eyes. I know the truth of what was done to him, and I will not let it be denied or buried. Colin was failed spectacularly in every conceivable way. Neither his physical or mental health was ever properly assessed by the clinical or nursing staff entrusted with his care. He was placed in environments guaranteed to have a negative impact on his mental health, and it did. His very basic care needs were neglected to such an extent that his physical health was inevitably going to worsen, and it did. His easily treatable physical conditions were at the very least allowed to deteriorate unchecked, if not actively worsened by the incompetence of those meant to be looking after him. There was a blatant disregard for all legal processes designed to protect vulnerable individuals needing care, such as the Mental Capacity Act, MCA, and the appointment of attorney under a lasting power of attorney, LPA. He was subjected to inappropriate, excessive and injurious use of physical restraints, arguably amounting to assault, and stripped of all dignity. Excess medication, this is expanded on and evidenced later in the statement. Safeguarding processes were not triggered despite obvious injuries and abuse. I was not told the truth. Reports were contradictory and staff tried to cover up what happened. The conditions that my poor Colin was subjected to and the lack of proper care inevitably caused his mild confusion to worsen and then descend into ever-increasing agitation and frustration. Instead of providing Colin with the care and treatment he needed, the chosen response of those looking after him was to chemically sedate him. Once they had embarked on that trajectory, although I did not know it at the time, there was only one direction in which things would go. Colin went into hospital May 2021 seeking treatment for a very minor and easily treatable health issues, earache and fatigue, against a background of occasional and mild confusion. At worst, he had an ear infection and chronic as opposed to acute heart disease. I firmly believe that if he had been given the care and treatment he both needed and entitled to, he would have been at home in a few days or less. Instead, after some 3.5 months, he was dead.
Thank you. Can I take you then, please, Melanie, to May 2021? And what I want to do is, you've done it a little, but set in context and give the background to how it came to be that Colin was first admitted to hospital. In May 2021, Colin was 81. Yes? It's important to note, and you tell us this in your witness statement, that at the time he was very physically fit. He still went walking, running, out on his bike, walking the dog. Is that right?
Playing golf twice a week, yeah.
Golf twice a week. I'm going to ask you, I'm so sorry, when the answer is yes, rather than nodding, only for the transcript,
yes, okay.
Please say so. No, it's my fault. He had, prior to May 2021, started to show some mild confusion,
Yes.
but you tell us that that wasn't something that had impacted on your quality of life.
No.
You were living a very full and very happy life together.
Yes.
There came a date in May when you decided to call the GP because you were slightly concerned about his confusion. That
Yes.
was on the 21st of May. And the plan had been to arrange some blood tests, but thereafter, as I understand it, in fact, on the following Tuesday, the 25th, Colin was complaining of tiredness and of earache, as you've noted.
He wasn't complaining. I noticed it, and I noticed
see.
he's very tired. So he went to the GP. The GP said, call 111. And the ambulance came, did some checks, and took him into hospital for further checks, because they said that his heart rate at that time was 35, so his heart rate was very low.
Yes, so you had taken his heart rate, I think, or it had been taken.
Yes, we had done it.
Yes, so he went by ambulance on advice from the 111 service
Yes.
to Broomfield A&E.
Yes.
Now, my understanding is that you could not accompany him because COVID restrictions were in place at the time.
That's right, yeah.
When he was admitted into A&E at Broomfield Hospital, he was found to have a low heart rate and an abnormal heart rhythm. But crucially, as I understand it from your witness statement, the doctor who saw Colin in A&E noted him to be alert and that there was no confusion.
Yep.
The key here is that physically and mentally, in all substantial respects, Colin was well on admission to Broomfield Hospital. Is that fair?
That's my understanding, yes.
He certainly did not present with any complex physical need at the time or any acute mental health problem. Thank you. The next day, you spoke to him by phone, and you tell us in your witness statement that he seemed to you to be confused. Mm-hmm. You were concerned by that. One of your concerns, I think, was that he might have a urinary tract infection, mm-hmm. because you know that that can exacerbate confusion. And you had assumed, I think, that on admission to A&E, a urine test would be carried out as part of baseline observations.
Colin was that, he was able to tell me. We had the conversation. I said, have they done this, have they done that? And he said, no, they haven't.
Why did they keep him in?
That will come through, won't it?
It will.
Yeah.
You can summarise. I mean, what do you think is the major reason?
My understanding is that he got more confused. He wanted to leave. He was asking to leave, and they refused him to leave. And Colin said to me, they pushed me on the bed, pushed me down on the bed. I pushed back. And then my next understanding is that he was injected with lorazepam and knocked out.
He became very agitated waiting in A&E.
He did.
And was sedated.
Home. He wanted to come home.
Yes. What I want to do also, Melanie, please, is to set this period that we're going to be talking about in context. I'm going to take you through, and you must just check if I have it correct. From that date when he first entered Broomfield Hospital, which was the 25th of May 2021, until the date of his death on the 7th of September, I want to identify where he was so that those listening have an idea of the chronology as we go through it. So from the 25th of May until the 9th of June, Colin was at Broomfield Hospital.
Okay.
First at A&E, then in the acute medical unit, and then transferred between a number of different wards. And we'll come to those. He was then admitted on the 9th of June to Goodmayes Hospital under Section 2 of the Mental Health Act, and we'll come to why that was. Mm-hmm. On the 17th of June, following a mental health tribunal, he was discharged home to you and remained there with you until the 21st of June, so a short time. Mm-hmm. Thereafter, between the 21st of June and the 21st of July, he spent time at 2 different care homes.
Yes.
On the 21st of July, he was admitted to hospital in Basildon.
Yes.
And then on the 6th of September, he was discharged. You brought him home to you by private ambulance.
Yes.
And we know that he died the next day,
Yes.
early in the morning. Thank you. The other thing, please, before we go through some of the key events of what happened in those locations, is that I would like, again, for those listening, to set matters in context and so that people are aware of the sorts of failings that you want to talk to us about. Could I ask you, please, to look at the major failings you have listed, which start on page 106 of your witness statement? Now, Melanie, I don't intend to read them all with you because
Yep.
they're set out for us there. And as you know, your witness statement will be published. But just to note some of those and certainly your headline points for those listening. You first tell us about a series of failures in clinical care, yes?
Yes.
One of the things you note is that throughout the period I have just set out, it is your view that no single clinician or team took overall responsibility for his care and treatment.
Correct.
Simple health issues, as you've explained, were ignored or left untreated,
Correct.
and there was no effective planning, in your view. In terms of nursing care, amongst other matters, you have noted that his basic needs were not met.
Yes.
You often found him in what you describe as an appalling state.
Yes.
You saw bruises and injuries on him
Yes.
that you consider were not properly accounted for.
They weren't even written in the books.
Thank you.
Yeah. Or in the files.
You tell us that safeguarding processes were neglected,
Absolutely ignored.
and as we'll come on to, that staff relied on restraint, chemical restraint, as well as physical.
Yeah, staff, but they brought in untrained security staff to carry these restraints out.
You're talking presumably about the physical restraint?
Yes.
Thank you.
If you're talking medical, like medication restraint, yeah, they relied on that heavily too.
Thank you. Heavy sedation, I think is how
Absolutely
you
heavy
describe.
sedation.
Thank you. Moving to paragraph 280, if you're following it, I don't say that you need to. You list a series of mental health failings, assessments that were delayed or carried out while Colin was heavily sedated, making them, in your view, completely meaningless.
Yes.
Incidents of Colin becoming confused or agitated, being treated almost as misbehaviour
Yes.
and dealt with in that way.
Yes.
You tell us, and we certainly will come to it, that you were excluded from assessments and from important decisions, the most
Yeah.
crucial decisions around planning.
Yes. And you have to bear in mind, people need to know, I had power of attorney for health for him.
So you held a lasting power of attorney.
Yes,
for,
but
for,
it was
for Colin.
completely ignored and overridden at every step of the way.
Thank you. You point us to basic failures to risk assess and to put in place protective measures when Colin began to express to you thoughts of suicide that you
Absolute, yeah.
reported. You tell us about a number of concerns about medication, which we will come to, and those include errors and what you consider to have been excess sedation.
Yep.
In
I
general,
don't consider it. It's being proved through, you know, the niche report that is referred to through my statement actually proves it.
yes. You say that medication was used primarily as a tool to control Colin,
It was.
not to treat him.
Yes.
You also come on to Colin being kept, certainly at one stage, and there may be more we'll come to, being kept in hospital unlawfully, neither having been detained under section nor having had a deprivation of liberty order authorised.
Yes, I was told both were in place. They had no legal paperwork.
No legal framework.
Yeah, they had no right to keep him. They lied.
You tell us towards the bottom of page 109 that it felt as though the focus was on containment and risk management, not on preserving his life or his dignity.
Yeah, I should reword that. I didn't feel it, I knew it.
And then over the page, please, at page 1110 and paragraph 284, you describe encountering a culture that was defensive and indifferent,
Yes.
where your warnings and concerns were ignored.
Yes, I mean, it's what you're saying is all correct, but I want to just say there were some very helpful staff, but those up there were stopping them. It's it's almost as if, I think I put in my statement somewhere, they were being told not to be nice, not to get involved, all the rest of it. So
You pointed upwards when you said those up there. Can I put it in this way, because you do cover it in your statement? It's your view, I think, that there were some very kind junior staff
yes,
who were warm and tried to assist you and
Yes.
listen to your concerns.
yes.
But you also refer to a very strong impression you had that there was a culture of fear and that those junior staff were in fear of more senior staff.
Absolutely. I can recall one day, one member of staff, she was lovely, and she held out the medication chart where they were putting it on, and she said, take a photograph of it. And she held it out in front of me so I could take a picture of it. But I didn't understand what she was showing me at that time because I'm too busy trying to change Colin. But now I see what she was pre-warning me, what they were doing.
I understand. Thank you. You also note, and then we'll move on, that you say, in fact, if you want to look at it, it's at paragraph 285, there is no doubt in my mind whatsoever that Colin was treated as though his life had less value because of his age.
Yes.
You tell us that you consider that the care decisions made were arbitrary and that there was a clear disregard for the sanctity of life.
Yes.
And you go on, I'm going to read the last part of that paragraph to say this went beyond human error. The repeated failures, omissions and indifference amounted to willful neglect and, in my view, to unlawful killing.
Yes, they killed him.
I'm going to move, please, Melanie, to, first of all, the periods of admission where Colin spent time at Broomfield and then at Goodmayes.
Yes.
We're going to look at some of the key issues that you have raised about his care and treatment or lack thereof over that period. So we're looking at the period at Broomfield from the 25th of May to the 9th of June, followed by the period at Goodmayes from the 9th to the 17th of June. All right?
Okay.
Dealing first with his physical health, you consider overall, is this right, that was utterly ineffectively treated?
Yes.
And in fact, I think you've already told us that ineffective treatment of his physical health symptoms is what led to the mental health symptoms that later presented.
He went in to A&E, and my understanding is he told me they'd done certain tests. I went and met with the doctor there and asked him what they'd done, and he said, we've scanned his head, we've done blood tests, we've done this, we've done that. And I said, have you done a urine check? Bear in mind, he'd been in there 2.5 days by now. And he got up and walked out the room.
Thank you.
They hadn't done it.
Melanie, I'm so sorry. I'm being asked to ask you to just slow yourself a little when you're talking.
Okay.
It's for no other reason than that the transcriber is taking a note and needs to be able to do so. So I'll keep reminding you, it's very easily done.
Yeah.
So we've noted that a possible infection is left untreated, left undetected if they're, and therefore untreated for days.
Well, I think they then went ahead and did the urine test. They didn't find any, but there's two care plans. One says follow sepsis pathway.
Yes.
And nothing was done. And the other one says, I can't recall what that says, but I remember he ends up in, if we move forward to Turner Ward, I don't know if you want to go there yet.
All right. Please go ahead.
So he ends up on the ward, and the actual ward sister there, I said, well, what's happening? She says, well, I don't know what's happening. I've been told not to treat him for anything. He's just waiting a mental health assessment.
Yes.
And that was that. 15 days we waited, and he was just in a room. The window only opened slightly. There was workmen outside, so it's hammering and banging all day. The television was broken. There was no radio. I would go in, sitting there for hours with him, and he could just walk out to the. He had a toilet in the room. He could just walk out to the doorway there, and there was 2 security guards. If he went any further, he was restrained.
I understand. We'll come to this.
Yeah.
We'll come to this. Thinking for now about his physical health symptoms during that period.
Okay, so
We've got the infection that was left undetected and therefore possibly untreated. He had a hernia.
He had a hernia, yeah, and they were giving him blood thinners, and I remember him talking to me one day. He says, I'm in terrible pain. And I said, where? He says, where my hernia is. He said, I don't know what they've done. And I did ask staff then, doctor came in, and he'd actually been injected straight into his hernia, and he had a bruise like this on his stomach.
And I think your concern at the time, or the question in your mind was, why would you inject someone at the site of a hernia?
Oh, it was ridiculous. And he was covered in bruises through restraint. He had tears on his arms.
Thank you.
He was medicated to the hill.
He also, I think, had a history of urinary tract infections and constipation.
He couldn't pee. I asked them, he used to take 2 Fibrogel, which is a laxative, twice a day. I'd left all his medication at A&E. It hadn't passed down. They didn't have any laxative to give him. So I think in the end I had to give him enemas. But he was even telling security, look, I can't pee. Look, I'm trying, but nothing's happening.
Yes.
So, yeah, there was lots going on.
One of the things
left unchecked.
One of the things that you've discovered about that is that from the records, there was, despite the fact that those were baseline issues and he had a history, for example, of UTIs and constipation, there was little or no monitoring of his symptoms in that regard throughout.
None. Absolutely none. They did no nursing, physical stuff.
Thank you. I want to talk, please, about the way in which you consider that his mental health was treated, noting as we have that when he left your home on the 25th of May, what you saw and knew of him was no more than mild confusion. One of the wards to which Colin was transferred, and you've just referred to it a little.
Could I just stop you a minute, Rachel?
Of course you can.
When you say mild confusion, that sounds like he had it all day long. He didn't.
You tell us.
He was having what I understand now as the classic signs of sundowning. So it would happen about 8 o'clock at night. He'd already gone to bed. He would come down the stairs. And this is for instance, he said to me once, where are the sticky sandwiches? And I went, what do you mean the sticky sandwiches? He said, the ones you put in your pocket and tie around your waist. And I said, oh, I'm going to make you some. I'll bring them up, go back to bed. That was the extreme of it.
Yes.
That was it. Nothing during the day. He's been fine. He's been out in the garden. He's been doing his work. He's been doing it. It was just when he got tired, that evening bit, that was starting to happen.
Moments of confusion.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's how mild it was.
In general, in terms of his mental health, you consider across the board that medications used during this period were inappropriate or excessive or both.
Absolutely.
One of the things that you think contributed most strongly to the mental state that Colin came to be in, because as we'll come to hear, you did at a later stage have calls with him where he said something along the lines of, I can't go on with this, and he spoke about killing himself. But the lead up to that had involved quite a number of days effectively in seclusion on Bardfield Ward.
Absolutely in seclusion, yes. And they would say, oh, there was the weekend, the bank holiday weekends. It was like Easter period. It was very hot as well. They had no air conditioning in that part of the hospital. There was a machine down the end of the ward.
Yes.
So this particular weekend, I think the record said along the lines of, he was being good, so we allowed him to wander the ward.
I see.
We have to rewind. No, it wasn't that he was being good. It was a bank holiday weekend and there was no security staff available.
Yes. So that was the weekend of Saturday, the 29th of May.
Right.
And at that time, he was being cared for in a side room.
Yeah.
I understand that you're unhappy about my choice of phrase.
Yeah, okay.
He was in a side room.
Yes.
There were 2 security guards on the door. Mm-hmm. The window in the room was not one you could see out of. It was frosted.
Yes.
You describe the atmosphere as stifling. Mm-hmm. There was nothing for him to do in that room.
No.
And no way for him to engage with anyone else unless he had a visitor.
Exactly, yeah. If the security guards were English, a couple of the lads were absolutely brilliant, and because Colin was football, they would sit and talk football.
Yes.
And they would phone me, and if I wasn't there, and we could have conversations.
Yes.
But there is a night that you're going to refer to shortly, and the staff weren't English, and they just sat on their mobile phones. He was completely ignored. He couldn't converse, and
Yes.
you know, it's enough to. I would have wanted out of the room as well.
Yes.
No way to keep somebody.
There came a day, as an example, you tell us in your witness statement, you don't need to go to it, but if you want to, it's on page 20 at paragraph 55, on the 6th of June, and you tell us that you had stayed on the ward that day up until about 8:45 p.m.
I would stay as long as they would let me, yes.
Yes. So you were there as long as you were allowed to be there. Is that fair?
Yeah.
On that day, when you had to leave, when you were asked to leave, he became very upset and desperately didn't want you to go because he had no one to talk to, quite literally. And you say there, at the end of that paragraph, he had been kept in what effectively amounted to solitary confinement for some 11 days by that time.
Mm. I think I'd like to say that in the in-between, I think we got to day 7, and I understood that doles would last for 7 days, which is the deprivation of liberty.
Slow down a little bit. Keep going, but slow down.
So I was going to visit Colin, and I met a friend of mine that was a nurse on another ward, and she's, you know, why are you at Broomfield? And I said, well, Colin's in hospital. Why? Blah, blah, blah. Heart failure? Oh, they say that about all the old people. And I said, well, I've been waiting 7 days already for this mental health assessment. And she said, but you can go to Basildon and get it done in 4 hours.
Yes.
So when I went to the ward, I said, so what's happening about the mental health assessment? And initially I got to say, it hadn't been applied for. One ward thought that one had done it and that one had done it. And it wasn't till I insisted, make sure, and it was then applied for.
Yes.
Where was I? Anyway, so I then went in and spoke to the nurse and said, what's happening about this mental health assessment?
Yes.
And she said, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, hold on. I said, I'm going to take him off the ward now. I'm going to drive him to Basildon. I can get it done in 4 hours. And we can come back here and then take it from there.
Yes.
With that, panic, files come out.
Yes.
Yes, the doles has been applied for. We've got the emergency here. Another 7 days. You can't take him anywhere.
I'm going to come to those assessments, Melanie, all right? Because your overarching point is that during the whole of that period, you do consider that your rights and your understanding of your rights under the lasting power of attorney were ignored.
Absolutely ignored.
And that as a result, Colin's rights were ignored. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about some of the assessments that took place.
Yes.
In general terms, my understanding is, because there were a number of capacity assessments under the Mental Capacity Act and a number of mental health assessments. Mm-hmm. And my understanding from you is that you, if you knew about them, asked to be present at each.
Yes.
And it's your evidence that for a great number of those, if not all, your request to be present at those assessments was refused.
All of them.
What reason were you given on any or all of those occasions for...
Just that I wasn't allowed. I said, I've got power of attorney, but you're still not allowed to be in the assessments.
And what do you think the reason was?
My understanding now, through a friend, is that I was refused admittance because one of the assessors...
You're talking to us now. I just want to ensure that I'm clear.
Right.
I think you're going to be speaking about that first assessment on the 26th of May in Broomfield, which was a capacity assessment.
Okay.
Is that right?
So, yeah, that's my understanding, was that through a friend, that the girl that was doing the assessment knew me, knew of the campaign, and knew that I would know her.
Yes.
So didn't want me involved. So I was told I wasn't allowed to be involved. It's all
Yes.
done behind closed doors. The mental health assessment, I have no idea. They were doing it just there. They brought in an HMPH, 2 doctors. The only thing I can think of is 15 minutes before that assessment,
Yes.
I've given it as evidence. I took a video of Colin.
Yes.
I
Are you
put
talking about a later mental
a
health
later
assessment?
mental health assessment I was refused to go
Yes.
into. I gave him a cup of water, and it's a little paper cup, and he just said water in like that, and he's like this. He was so drugged on lorazepam, it turns out he had had 4 milligrams over these guidelines.
Melanie, I think you're talking, I'm sorry to stop you, I want to ensure that I'm clear. I think you're talking there about a mental health assessment that took place on the 9th of June.
Sorry, if I
No, I'm not asking,
Okay.
I'm not correcting you. I
Right.
just want to make sure that I'm clear. I think you're talking about an assessment that took place on the 9th of June.
Yes, I am.
And that was in fact the mental health assessment
Yes.
that led to Colin's detention under section.
Yes,
You objected to the fact of that assessment being carried out because
absolutely. He was so highly medicated. I mean, he thought he was drinking the water, and it was down here.
yes.
He
Can
couldn't.
I just stop you there?
Yeah.
Sorry, because the question you had been asked was about...
Sorry.
That's all right. It was about refusal of you to be
Yes.
engaged with it.
Yeah.
And you were going to say why you thought they had refused.
Well, I don't know. It's just the way they spoke to you. No, you cannot come in here. And I says, well, look, I'm coming as Colin's advocate.
They didn't give you any reason?
No, it was just a clear no. And sometimes people talk to you in such a way as you're petrified to say anything, you know, and at times I was treated like that. I do say what I'm feeling, but at times I was made to feel this small. God, just stand back.
Did they suggest that there might be any confusion between who it was in the family that should have been?
They knew exactly who they were dealing with. They knew.
They didn't give you any reason to think that they would, or that they had, in fact, consulted, say, his children about this? No.
No.
And you didn't have any reason to think that the children
They did it in such a way. So before a lot of these assessments, they would have me in, have a chat with me, and then send me out. Colin would be waiting all day long, and he'd go, I'm going for my assessment now, because he was excited to go and do his assessment, and then he's going to get out. You know, and then it would... Off they would take him. So I never actually saw who was doing the assessments, who was involved, apart from the one mental health assessment on the 9th of June. I saw who was involved.
Yes.
But I didn't know who was involved in the other ones. I was kept hidden. But my understanding, like for the delay, I'd say, why is it taking so long? And there was apparently who was going to take control, and Mid-Essex didn't want to do it, and EPUT didn't want to do it. They were arguing because of who I was.
They were arguing, I'm so sorry, did you say
My
because of who
understanding,
you
because
were?
my involvement, yes.
Yes. And you think it was that factor that led to a sort of attempt to shift responsibility between
Absolutely,
trusts?
and a huge delay in getting it done. Yeah.
There were also, I think, thank you, noting that there was also in the niche report some criticism of the quality of, in particular, the capacity assessments that were carried out.
Right.
So I think also, if we go back, so we've heard a little about the capacity assessment that took place on the 26th of May, when Colin was first admitted to Broomfield, and you've told us a little about the mental health assessment on the 9th of June, before his transfer to Goodmayes. That was the one I think that you could see happening.
Yeah.
There was another capacity assessment between those two dates on the 4th of June. And as I understand it, that was again one that you asked to be present at.
Yeah.
But your presence there, that request was refused.
Yes.
And you tell us, I think, that after that assessment, you spoke to the ward consultant about the factors we've discussed around the environment Colin was being kept in. You spoke, if you want to look at it, if you go to page 17 and to paragraph 50.
17 or 70?
17.
Right, whereabouts?
So we see there that on Friday the 4th of June,
Okay.
there's the capacity assessment noted. You weren't allowed to be present. And all I was taking you to, but I realise we're skipping around a little between dates,
Yeah.
was the fact that on that date, after the capacity assessment, when Colin had been determined for a second time not to have capacity, you raised all the issues that you have just described to us with the ward consultant, because you were acutely aware that those factors were causing his condition to deteriorate.
Absolutely.
As far as you are aware, Melanie, what action, if any, was taken following you raising those concerns?
Nothing. And my understanding is Colin is not alone in this happening, because it's just remembered, but at that time they were doing renovations to somewhere in the Crystal Centre, which could have been an alternative, perhaps. Not that I
Yes.
would have wanted him to go there. And after whatever happened to Colin, they were then, the security said, we're going down to another ward now. We're going to do exactly the same to another gentleman.
Yes.
It's just,
Going back now to the mental health assessment you've told us about that was carried out on Wednesday, the 9th of June, you've told us that you were extremely unhappy that an assessment was being carried out on that date, because when you got to the ward, Colin was incoherent and unable to walk.
yeah. He was flat out on the bed as they were doing their assessment.
Yes.
You know, so I took a video, you see a video before and after their assessment, how they can assess somebody that can't even open their eyes and talking like that.
Yes.
It doesn't, you know.
Nonetheless, the assessment went ahead.
Absolutely, yeah.
You were told that the result of it was that Colin would be detained under Section 2 of the Mental Health Act and transferred to Goodmayes. Am I right in saying that you were extremely unhappy about that decision?
Yeah.
One of the things that you tell us about that particular period of time is that following the assessment, one of the assessing clinicians, so this is still the 9th of June, the approved mental health practitioner, in fact, told you something along the lines of not to worry, because she or he was going to get in touch with Goodmayes and to try to ensure that you could have extended visiting hours so that you could spend as much time as possible with Colin.
Yeah.
You now know, I think you tell us from the records, that no such thing took place. Is that right?
She wrote to Goodmayes to say that I wasn't acting in Colin's best interest and I should be removed. The one blessing was I'd actually written an email to the psychiatrist that was taking over Colin's care at Goodmayes,
I see.
explaining Colin's presentation, what had happened to him, and she read that and bounced straight back and said, well, I can't see. I've just received all this information from Melanie, and I
Yes.
can't see how on earth she's not acting in his best interests.
As far as you are aware, or maybe you've seen it in the correspondence, I don't know, you'll tell us, what was the basis for that comment from the approved mental health practitioner, that comment that you were not acting in Colin's best interests?
I can't remember.
Thank you.
Have I written it in the statement somewhere?
No, that's why I asked.
I think I was.
You may not know.
I think I was just being. Let's get her out the picture. To be honest.
I understand. And do you consider, speak plainly, that was as a result of fear and hesitance around your campaign into Matthew's death?
Yes.
Thank you. I want to move on, please, to talk about the way in which Colin was medicated and the way in which he was restrained, both medically and physically. And again, we're still talking about the period at Broomfield and at Goodmayes. All right?
Yep.
you consider in general terms that where incidents of aggression were reported, those were your partner in a state of very severe agitation and confusion. Fear, thank you, and that those states, when he got into them, were treated inappropriately. Starting in Broomfield on the 26th, you've told us that you understand now from the records that the reason he was kept in is because, having waited for however long it was in A&E, he became very agitated and was sedated with lorazepam.
He wanted to go home
Yes.
and was getting agitated. I don't know whether he was simply dehydrated. Colin used to drink a litre of water every night, you know,
Yes.
and drink lots. I drink very little, but today, I've drunk a bottle of water. I'll probably drink 2 or 3 now. But if you're not getting enough water, you know,
Yes.
he'd get confused. And
And with a history of UTIs.
yeah, and he wanted to come home, so
Yes.
they're stopping him. What's interesting is that the doctor that medicated Colin with that first shot of lorazepam
Yes.
was the same doctor in Matthew's care that I took to the GMC.
Thank you. So this is something you learned later.
Yes.
You didn't know that at the time.
No.
You now know from the records that that same doctor was centrally involved in the care of your son,
Absolutely.
and that psychiatrist was the subject of a complaint by you.
He didn't see Colin. He didn't assess him before that. He just prescribed it via a phone call.
Yes.
And once that first shot of lorazepam went in, they never stopped.
Yes. The other thing we know from the niche report, we don't need to go to it, I don't think, is that niche investigators concluded that there should have been consideration given on that evening, the 26th of May, to an emergency psychiatric review. As far as you are aware, that was not carried out.
No.
On several occasions throughout that period, you tell us that you went to visit Colin or saw him and were shocked by the state of him, in particular wounds and bruises,
Yes.
and by the fact that on occasion he was so heavily sedated that he was unable to recognise you.
When I had to wait 2.5 days before I could actually go into Broomfield, he had to come out of A&E, the assessment unit, until he got onto the first ward, internal ward.
So I think you went there, you were first able to go there on the 27th of May.
Yeah, so halfway into the 3rd day. And he was in the main atrium of Broomfield Hospital, sat with security either side. And I went, oh, 2 security guards. I went, no, there's 4. And he had bruises all up and down his arms. He looked up at me and his vision, his eyes were that blurred. He didn't know. He didn't have a Scooby who I was.
Yes. By Sunday the 30th of May, and by then, Colin had been transferred to Bardfield ward, which is the ward you and I have been discussing, where he was held effectively, as you describe it, in seclusion or in solitary confinement. On that afternoon, which was Sunday the 30th of May, when you visited, you found him so extremely confused that he almost wasn't recognisable to you as the Colin that you knew.
Oh,
Is
he
that a
wasn't.
fair description?
Yes.
You were given to understand on that day that more lorazepam had been administered. And you say, in fact, I'm going to quote it to you, I strongly believe that he was being over-medicated and that it was the combination of this together with his untreated constipation that was responsible for his extreme confusion and agitation, which then translated into aggression and then was again medicated.
He was scared. He was petrified that they were going to kill him.
Thank you. I want to take you, please, in particular to an event on the 8th of June. If we look at it together, please, if you go to page 20 of your witness statement and to paragraph 58. Melanie, you will tell me if you need a break.
Sure.
Thank you. We're by now on Tuesday the 8th of June and Colin is still at Bardfield Ward. It was clear to you that he was continuing to deteriorate both physically and mentally. But on this particular day, looking at the very bottom of page 20, you don't need to, he told you that if he was kept confined like that for much longer, he was going to kill himself. Had he ever said anything like that to you before?
Before that moment, I don't know whether it's... Not in that room, no.
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 Had he said it at any time, in fact, at Broomfield?
No. No, I think that was the first time. That was the one where I said I had a belt in, didn't it?
It was.
Right, yeah, there.
So coming to that, one of your first concerns when he said that to you was that he had in the room with him a belt, a razor.
Yeah. And I notified the doctor.
Yes?
Yeah.
Tell us about that. You were clear about what Colin had said to you about this suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
You told the doctor specifically, I think, that you were concerned because he had those items in the room with
Yes.
him.
Yes.
Is this right? Her response was, we'll have those items removed.
Yes, it was.
Anything else? Any other response?
No other response. I just reported. We were having a conversation about Colin, how he's behaving, all the rest of it, and I told her, and yeah, that's what she said. We'll have them removed, and then we actually all left the ward together. There was another nurse there with her.
I see.
Psychiatric nurse, I don't know.
And this was on the 6th of June,
The 8th.
the 8th, so the day before the Mental Health Act assessment.
That's right. So that's the day before Colin was detained under section. Thank you.
Thank you.
On that day, the day of the mental health assessment, as I understand it, when you visited the ward, the two items you had been concerned about remained in Colin's room.
Yes. And shoelaces, stuff like that. I took it all home.
In your view, it was clear that the risk of suicide that you had been clear about had not been acted on.
Nothing.
We've described the state that you found Colin in by the 9th of June and the circumstances of his assessment. And as I understand it, you describe having to watch him because he couldn't walk unaided by then, being escorted into an ambulance for the transfer to Goodmayes by security guards.
What did you think of that decision to detain him?
Oh, I was absolutely gutted. I had, in between visiting Colin, we'd been having discussions that he was going to come home, but he should maybe go to a care home for 2 weeks, and then get his medication sorted out for what he needed. So that was the plan. So I'd been going to care homes. I'd had no help from social services. I'd been trying to find somewhere for him. I found somewhere. He had an assessment. The care home were happy to take him. He was due to go there that Monday. And they were coming to do whatever they needed to do, and he would be discharged. Because of the events on the Sunday night, he never went to the care home. He ended up going to Goodmayes. And I recall staff saying in their paperwork, it says Melanie, Colin was sectioned and the security, whoever came to take him away, and she did nothing. What could I do? I stood and just sobbed.
Did you think it was inappropriate for him to be sectioned?
Absolutely.
Given what you told us about the suicidal ideation the day before?
Yeah, but it was, I mean, I'm not a professional. They were the professionals, but you do not do an assessment on someone that's absolutely out of their tree. It just wasn't right.
Okay.
And, the whole thing was wrong.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think as you said to us earlier, or I perhaps summarised it and you agreed, you considered that assessment couldn't have been meaningful because of the state that you saw Colin in on the 9th. Is that right?
Yeah, and even when he arrived at Goodmayes, and you'll probably come on to that, but he arrived at Goodmayes and apparently he was just coming to again, and what did they do? They gave him more lorazepam because they didn't know how many he'd already had at the other place. It was already over what he should have had in the first place.
And I think that came about, didn't it, because records had not been transferred with him. So on arrival, the transfer took place. And I think what you're telling us is that Goodmayes, on receiving Colin, were effectively guessing and just administered more lorazepam.
Yes, and he'd been on a medication for he had an enlarged prostate, so they'd been giving him medication for that.
Yes.
And he had stopped that himself because he said he thought that's why he was getting tired and feeling groggy.
I see.
So he stopped that. Apparently, anyway, it was still on the prescription. They started him back on it at Broomfield. By the time he gets to Goodmayes, he's now getting 2 prostate drugs.
At the same time?
At the same time, because although they'd stopped one and started a new one, they hadn't stopped the first one.
Yes.
So
that's one of the medication errors, effectively, that we can put on your list or add to your list.
But it was because Goodmayes didn't get any documents, I think, for the first 14 days or 2 weeks. I don't know, he wasn't in there long. But they hadn't got the documentation, hadn't been sent over.
Yes. Can we talk a little, please, about lorazepam in particular, because you have very strong feelings about the use of that sedation or sedation in general in these circumstances. One of the sections of the niche report that you set out for us in your witness statement, and we can go to it if you would like to follow, is starting at page 18 and paragraph 52. I'm summarising, Melanie, but
Sure.
Do you have the page?
Yep.
Thank you. I'm summarising, but what the niche report notes in that first section, in the last paragraph of page 18, is that while there are occasions when pharmacological interventions are required, benzodiazepines such as lorazepam can increase agitation. Goes on to say that some older adults in particular can be affected. So that's a statement about the effect or potential effect of lorazepam in general.
Yeah.
But if we look across at the page after that, on page 19, what is particularly crucial, I think, to note is that niche investigators found that there was no plan in place to do something other than sedate Colin. I'm summarising very heavily, but if we look at that section, it tells us, and this is from the niche report, security staff were present at all times, but there was no plan in place to help staff understand what might interest Colin, what might calm him down, what distraction techniques might be useful, what might work, to prevent him getting into a state of agitation that might become violent. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely. I will be fair, there was one security guard there in particular, the night that Colin got the 4 milligrams given to him. Obviously, Colin was, with the prostate problem, he would get the urge to pee, so he's up and down generally through the night trying, but nothing would happen. It was just you get that urge and you can't go.
Yes.
And this security guard the next day, he said, "Oh my God, Mel, it's been awful," because they came quite friendly to me.
Yes.
He says, "It's been awful." He said, "He's been trying to get up during the night. He couldn't walk." He says, "We've been holding him up to get him to the toilet." And I said, "Well, why are they doing it?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "We've just been left to get on with it."
Yes.
So for them, they did an amazing job in that respect, because literally he was drugged and just left on the bed.
But to be clear, those were security staff.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah. My understanding, Broomfield security staff had some training in restraint. Basildon certainly haven't at that time.
Yes.
And I have evidence of the security staff corroborating that as well.
Yes. One of the things that niche investigators have noted in this report is that The Trust's own policies, in particular for dementia patients, describe key principles which include requiring staff to engage with families and carers, to establish normal routines and to try to keep to those. And there's reference to the This Is Me programme to try to personalise care and identify triggers and so on. And most crucially, the niche report says this: we can see no evidence of normal routines being discussed with family or the This Is Me booklet being completed at this time. Mm-hmm. As far as you can remember, Melanie, did anyone ever speak to you? You've spoken to us about security staff and other staff who were helpful or warm. Mm-hmm. But did anyone ever speak to you about how to deal with Colin's rising frustration that sometimes translated into aggression without chemical or physical restraint? Did anyone ask for your input?
No.
You yourself noted that, or you saw that it seemed to you that lorazepam had a particular effect on Colin, in that within not very long of it having been administered, he would become itchy and sweaty. Is that right?
Yep.
What else?
He would sit and scratch.
Yes.
It's all itching him, and literally his head would be down, and honestly, he's gone. Confused, totally.
That's the key. As I understand it, you
Yeah.
tell us that it appeared to you, and bearing in mind you were there with him a lot, that particular medication exacerbated his confusion.
Absolutely, yes.
You raised that fact with clinicians on more than one occasion.
Mm-hmm. With that, they did want to change to risperidone, but with his heart problem, then they were going to do some heart checks. That was my understanding. I wasn't too enamoured with having that drug.
Yes.
But what do you have? It's like, I wasn't the doctor.
Yes, I understand. You tell us, we spoke earlier and I summarised, I think, your overall very strong position is that Colin was either excessively medicated or inappropriately medicated or both.
Yes.
Can I take you, please, to page 108 of your witness statement? I want to look with you at a section of the niche report that you've set out for us there. Do you have the page?
Yeah.
Thank you. The final paragraph says Roman numeral 7. In relation to medication, the niche report, and you set it out, the first part tells us that the prescribing and administration of medications in general did not appear to be joined up and was not in line with good practice guidelines, I'm so sorry. Mm-hmm. Other causes of agitation, such as pain and infection, were not addressed sufficiently. I can take it, I think, that you agree with that finding.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
In the next paragraph, we see this. There were also occasions when this prescribing exceeded the limits of various trust policies. And the report goes on to set out what those policies are. We noted earlier that you do not have all of the drug records for that period, but it is nonetheless your evidence that sedative medication in excess of guideline limits were prescribed repeatedly.
Yes.
We also see at the very end of that section of that part of the niche report that you set out, at the top of paragraph 109, this, and this is from the niche report, a recording has been shared with us, and this includes a doctor telling a nurse, and this is in relation to Colin's care. Mm-hmm. This is a recording that you made.
Yes.
And later shared with Niche. So records a doctor telling a nurse to give sedation and painkillers freely, as this is the only way to keep him calm.
I think where you're bringing this out, At some stage, I'd like you to go back
Of course.
or go forward to the time that was said and the reason why he said that.
Was this later, that recording?
Yes, this was at the time where Colin was in Basildon Hospital in August,
I understand. So that's a little later.
the weekend of, yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah, give sedation and painkillers freely. I was out of the room at the time when he
Yes.
said that. And he prescribed medication with no daily limits written alongside. Give what you like.
That was in late August or early September, I
Yes.
think.
Yes.
And not too long before you felt that you had no option but to take Colin home.
No, it's before then. It's after. If you have a look where,
Don't worry,
where
we'll
all
come
the
back
drugs
to it.
are given for a number of days, it's the in-between bit before he goes to ICU. Before he goes to ICU.
I understand. Thank you. Let's go back in time then and back to Broomfield. Could you look, please, or you don't need to, I can read it, at page 18 of your witness statement and paragraph 51. There you say that as well as exacerbating his confusion and having the physical side effects that it had, you say the drugs they were giving Colin were turning a mild and gentle man into a monster, but nothing I said made any difference.
Yeah.
The staff were determined to treat Colin like an out-of-control animal that could only be managed by pumping him full of drugs. After his transfer to Goodmayes, I think I can summarise it in this way. The levels of sedation that you have described continued.
I think you need to understand this is a man, he wants to come home.
Yes.
He's fighting to get out of the ward. They've got doors locked. They're restricting his access. He wants to come home.
Yes.
So you're fighting for your life. You want to come home. So they wouldn't go, Cole, come on, let's go and sit down and do this or whatever. It's like, inject him, pin him down, restrain him. Yeah.
Thank you. Chair, I'm being reminded we've been going now for about an hour and just over an hour and 15 minutes. And I wonder if this might be a good time to take a short break.
How long would you like?
10 minutes?
10 minutes.
Thank you. Chair, thank you. Melanie, I'd like to take you, please, to a particular incident. We've just established that at Goodmayes, the sedation that you have described continued. And you've also spoken to us in very clear terms about how frightened Colin was and the fact that he wanted to be at home. He was desperate to be out.
Yes.
Can we go, please? Could I ask you to look at page 25 of your witness statement and at paragraph 73? We're coming now to the 13th of June. So Colin is only a few days in to his stay at Goodmayes, and I understand that he called you. Could you tell us about that incident?
Yes. Well, it says he was being threatened by staff. Yeah. He said he was just desperate. He said, "Tell them I'm nothing to do with the campaign. It's not me. You've got to get me out of here."
Yes.
He was petrified.
So these were things that he was saying to you. Staff were threatening him. He thought that was because he was being associated with your campaign.
Yes.
He also told you that he thought you could be in danger.
Yes.
And I think after that call, you tried to speak to a doctor, but you were told that none were available because it was the weekend.
Yes.
The next day, on Monday, the 14th of June, in the early hours of Monday.
Can I just interject and say I would have visited, but I was also not allowed to visit due to COVID measures in place.
Yes. So we take on board, and I'm sorry I should have noted it, that during this period, COVID restrictions were imposed and lifted and imposed and lifted, and there were times when you were simply not allowed to visit. Moving from Sunday the 13th of June into the early hours of the Monday, he called and was very distressed. Colin told you that staff had been pushing and shoving him, that he was frightened for his life.
Yes.
And you tried to reassure him.
He said he'd been pushed in his hernia.
Yes.
Yeah, and that he thought his finger was broken. Would I call the police? Call the police.
Yes. Before you could do anything, Colin called you again and said that he had been beaten up.
Yes.
So there were two separate calls before, and at the end of that second call, he said, "Call the police."
Yes.
Your response was to call the ward.
Yes.
You spoke to a deputy ward manager, I think,
Yep.
who gave you an assurance that, in fact, Colin had simply been assisted back to his room without any kind of physical intervention.
Yes.
Is that right?
I didn't touch him, just assisted him. Yep.
But later on the same day, you called back and spoke to a different ward manager. That second ward manager told you that, in fact, Colin had been physically restrained by the emergency team.
Yes.
Completely contradicting the information you'd been given earlier.
Yes.
Yes? Would it be right for me to say that shortly thereafter, or at around about that point, you felt that you had no choice but to seek his discharge because you considered that he was unsafe?
Yes.
You did that by way of a mental health tribunal.
Yeah.
And he was discharged home to you on the 17th of June, 2021. He was only with you for a short period, and I understand you describe him in your witness statement during that short period as a shell of his former self. One of the things that you noticed immediately on undressing him was that he was covered in bruises.
Yep. All down his legs, on his body, on his torso, around his back.
You photographed those injuries, I think, Melanie.
I took Colin to the GP.
Yes?
At some stage, and I asked him to do a body map for me, and he refused.
Do you know why he refused to do a body map?
We don't do that. So I photographed them.
You also, whilst Colin was at home and having discovered those bruises, called the ward at Goodmayes, I think it was Stage Ward, seeking answers about how he had come to sustain those injuries and how he was in that state. What response did you receive?
No idea.
There came a point, I think, where Colin left the house when you were at home with him, and Essex Police became involved. Essex officers saw the bruises also and advised you to make a complaint.
Yes.
You tell us that those officers told you that they had seen many cases of abuse at Goodmayes.
Yeah, one of the Essex officers had worked under the, I believe, Met Police down there.
I see.
Yeah, she confirmed that.
Now, on their advice, you did report the matter to the Metropolitan Police.
Yes.
And you've set out, for those following, it's at, I think, pages 29 to 35 of your witness statement. Yes, 29 to 35. Excerpts of your transcripts, excerpts of the transcript of 2 calls with Metropolitan Police officers, first with a police constable, and then with his sergeant. The upshot of this is, as far as I can see from the information you've given us, no action was taken.
No.
One of those officers, I think the sergeant, made a number of adverse comments about Goodmayes as an organisation that, to your mind, backs up what the Essex officers had been telling you.
Absolutely, yes.
And what you could see for yourself.
Yes.
In any event, your efforts in that regard led nowhere.
Led nowhere.
Now, you had sought Colin's discharge because you were so concerned for his safety in hospital.
Yes.
But by the time he came home to you on the 17th of June, my understanding is that because of the deterioration that had taken place, you felt quite quickly that you simply were not going to be able to care for him at home.
He didn't know who we were. The medication just ruined him.
Ruined him.
Ruined him. He could not. Once I'd given him, I was sent home with a prescription.
Yes.
Some of the drugs were missing, didn't come till the next day. I remember getting him back, and I think it was like 9:30 at night, emergency pharmacy to get the drugs that they wanted, and then we gave them to him, and it just knocked him out. I remember he fell asleep on the sofa, and Colin had never...
I'm slowing you down.
Sorry.
Don't say sorry. It's really hard to remember.
Colin had never been incontinent.
No.
And now he couldn't walk to the toilet. He literally rolled off the sofa on his knees and peed right there in the lounge on the carpet.
You concluded, I think, that it simply wasn't going to be safe for you to try to care for him at home.
I couldn't. He was paranoid,
Yes.
confused, scared, and powerful still.
Powerful physically.
Yeah.
Thank you. You made efforts yourself, without assistance other than from friends, to secure a care home for him. And you were hoping that that would be a period where he could stabilise such that you could have him returned home and take care of him yourself.
Yes.
So we have a period then which was a month from the 21st of June to the 21st of July, where Colin stayed in 2 different care homes. 2 things that I would like to note with you about that period. The first is that the original physical presenting complaints, earache and the heart problems that had been picked up at Broomfield A&E, were noted by a doctor in one of those care homes not to have resolved. And in fact, if we have a look at it, please, at page 37 of your witness statement, you may not need to look at it, but for those following, what you have stressed to us are the following. First of all, one of the doctors, and this is on the 25th of June, noticed green discharge emanating from one of Colin's ears. Now, we recall that one of the presenting issues had been earache.
Yes.
We also recall that one of your concerns throughout had been undetected or untreated infection of one kind or another.
Yes.
If we look, please, at paragraph 100 on the same page, you've also asked us to note the following from that doctor. and this is the 25th of June, I did not see any acute evidence of deterioration and aggression at the assessment, although Mr. Flatt had clearly experienced these difficulties previously. I explained the possibility of an episode of delirium due to urinary retention at that time. Mr. Flatt did not have any sign of confusion. Melanie, tell me, does that accord with your recollection of his mental state at that time?
Yes.
What do you conclude from that, if anything?
When he moves to the next care home, they pick up that they're not sure what medication Colin was given and what he wasn't.
Yes.
You know? So my conclusion is that they weren't giving him as much medication, possibly at that time, which gave him a chance to become human again.
Yes, and therefore present to that assessing doctor, whose letter I've just read, as less confused than he had previously been described. Thank you. The other matter I want to note is the reason for the move between the first care home, Woodland View, and the second, which I think was called Anisha Grange.
Anisha Grange, yes.
Now, you received a call on the 29th of June, when Colin was at Woodland View, the first care home, from the care home manager. And she told you that on the previous Saturday, the 26th, so the day after the doctor's assessment you and I have just looked at together, Colin had been aggressive, and that that incident and his case had been discussed by the dementia team. Your understanding, I think, was that was a reference to the dementia team more widely, not just within the care home. Is that correct?
It was the EPUT dementia team.
Thank you. Because when Colin had been at home with you for those 3 or 4 days, he'd been under the care of EPUT Dementia Services.
Yeah.
Thank you. During that call with the care home manager, what she told you was that he was too well and that the care home was inappropriate for him. Not very many days later, you actually spoke to a member of the dementia team, EPUT's dementia team, and that individual told you that no such discussion had taken place.
Yeah, what was said was that EPUT suggested that he was too well for home. And EPUT said, no, it wasn't us, we never said that.
I see.
Yeah.
You feel very squarely that there was a wholly separate reason for the decision for Colin to be moved from Woodland View, and what is that?
At that time, I was all over the news because EPUT at that time had just been prosecuted for the health and safety failings. So I was well known in this campaign. I'd like to say how bad that was, in that when they said he has to leave.
Yes.
Social services, I contacted them and I said, what do I do? They gave me 3 or 4 names of different care homes, said, phone them. They've got availability. No. And the only option would be then that Colin would go back to hospital and be held in another side room. And that was untenable. Oh, no, I couldn't. We can't. So it was horrendous. And it was almost to the extent of, no, we're not prepared to extend his stay while you find somewhere.
Yes.
They were so unhelpful. Just like to say as well, on that note, with the niche report, social services refused to engage with the niche report. I think that's important to...
Thank you. In the end, a second care home was found through your efforts.
Yes.
And at the end, his stay at that second care home came to an end, I think, because he had absconded from the care home and returned to the care home. He was returned to the care home with the help of police. Do you remember?
He managed to leave that care home a couple of times.
Tell us about that.
Which one?
Let me put it in this way, because I'm keen to ensure that all of your key points are raised. There were several incidents of Colin being able to abscond.
Yes.
As you've put it in your witness statement, apparently through a locked door and despite warnings from you. Is that right?
You're talking about at the care home?
I am.
Yes. There was... he was only there 2 weeks.
Yes.
But in that time, they realised...
This is the second care home,
Yeah.
Anisha Grange.
Yeah, they realised the medication that he'd been given at the previous one hadn't been given, titrated, was that the word? Hadn't been titrated correctly, so they
Yes.
needed to restart it was a Momentin or something like that then, and start giving him that again. They weren't happy with the way that had been done. The EPUT team were involved. Colin still, at that stage, hadn't had a heart check.
During that period, sorry to stop you,
Yeah.
you were pushing for a cardiology referral.
Yes,
Yes.
still hadn't had it.
Go on.
And they were struggling, and Colin would phone me, distressed, and I would say, whatever you're doing, he's going to explode any moment. I
Yes.
would know.
Yes.
I would know his trigger. And they go, no, he's fine, and the next thing there'd be an incident because something had happened, you know.
Had triggered him. I
Yeah.
understand.
So I paid for a one-to-one 24-hour nurse to be with him.
Now, that nurse was with Colin on the 21st of July, as far as you understand it, when he managed to abscond through an unlocked garden gate, is what you tell us in your
Yes.
witness statement.
Now, I questioned at some stage, I can't remember which one of the obstetricians it was, where was the one-to-one?
Yes.
And on a telephone call, which has since been denied, they said, we didn't have a one-to-one that day.
I see. On that occasion, police returned Colin to the home, and actually he was checked by paramedics, and it was that led him to be readmitted to hospital, this time Basildon. Yes?
Right, at that time, the lady at Anisha Grange, who was very good, was pushing for the heart assessment. We all know that Basildon is the heart place of Essex. They've got the heart centre there. So she said, this is a good opportunity. I'm going to encourage the ambulance to take him to Basildon.
And for that
And that's what she
reason,
did.
I think in part you felt some hope about it.
Yes.
About
we'd
that transfer.
He'd been weeks.
Yes.
And nobody had checked out what he initially went to hospital for.
Yes. Unfortunately, as we'll now hear, your hopes were fairly quickly dashed because the period of admission at Basildon bore very striking similarities to the matters you've described at both Broomfield and Goodmayes. Is that fair?
Striking but worse.
You describe him in general as being very poorly treated, and his condition worsened very significantly there. And we know, of course, that he remained in Basildon until you felt that you had no choice but to take him home, and on that occasion, that was to die. In particular, Melanie, if I can, I want to take you to 3 very significant incidents that occurred while Colin was at Basildon. The first occurred on the 27th of July. And just so that all those listening know what we're talking about, it is covered in the niche report, this incident, but one of your major concerns about it is that the evidence on what actually happened that day is, as you describe it, extremely inconsistent. Mm-hmm. On that day, Colin was able somehow to harm himself, to stab himself with scissors, or, depending on which post-incident statement you are looking at, or a knife, and somehow he then absconded from the ward at Basildon and fell in the main hospital atrium and sustained what were on any view a number of serious injuries.
He fell 20 foot onto a glass table. He managed to leave the ward. Do we go back to the hour before then? Or?
Of course, tell us. Well, let's do this, actually. That was on the 27th of July, and one of your most major concerns about the fact that that incident could have occurred at all is that there were clear warnings about risk.
So Colin was taken to Basildon Hospital.
Yes.
To my understanding, the 24-hour nurse, well, initially it was going to be the manager that, or clinical manager, I don't know what you call her, at the care home, was going with Colin, I'm talking Matthew now, going with Colin in the ambulance.
Yes.
Turns out she didn't go. They sent one of the 24-hour one-to-ones.
Yes.
And apparently he was taken to this unit, that unit. She left at 5 a.m. in the morning, so he's now in a bed on his own.
Yes.
He's been in A&E for God knows how long. We don't know that he was fed or watered. She just up and left. So I get a call, and I said, but you do know that he's likely to have abscond. They knew nothing.
So that particular member of staff, whatever the role,
Yeah.
you raised the fact that there was a history, by then, a history of incidents of absconsion.
Petrified.
Yes.
Because he, by that time, was blaming me because I hadn't got him out.
I see.
And I said, well, what do I do if he turns up at my house and he's going to, have a go at me? She said, call the police.
Okay. I'm going to ask you again, I'm so sorry,
Yeah.
Melanie, just to slow your speech as much as you can. I know it's impossibly difficult to remember, and I suspect I'm equally guilty, so we'll both slow ourselves down. I think, in fact, on the 25th of July at Basildon, he had attempted to abscond twice.
Yes.
And that was when you spoke to ward staff and said there's a risk of absconding.
He actually left the hospital that day.
Yes.
And his daughter had arrived to visit and brought him back.
Yes.
Police came. Police advised the ward that they should keep the doors locked.
I see. You also thereafter spoke to staff, and that's when you learned that apparently Basildon had not been made aware that there was any risk of absconsion.
No.
The other thing that occurred before the incident you've just described on the 27th of July is that on the 26th, going into the 27th of July, Colin had told you again, and you had alerted staff to this fact, that he was so desperate to get out that he was suicidal.
Yes.
Tell us a little about that, please.
He phoned me that morning of the 27th and he told me to tell his daughter, to tell his son. He's not doing this anymore. He was petrified, and I was, what are you saying? And he put the phone down. This was something like 7 a.m. So I instantly called the ward. And whenever you called the ward at any time, nobody answered. I rang. Finally, this man that I now identify answered. And I told him what Colin had said. Oh, no, I asked to speak to the ward sister. You're not speaking to her. He's fine. We're the clinicians. We're this, we're that. And I said, look, he's just phoned me with so-and-so and so-and-so. Oh, are you... Anyway, he put the phone down on me.
So did you had explained that Colin had phoned you in an extremely distressed state and had
said he's
mentioned
going to kill himself.
Killing himself, and that member of staff put the phone down on you.
Yes.
You then called again, I think.
Yes, I called again. Ring. And finally I got answered. And it was a female now. She told me she was the ward clerk or...
I think you said discharge facilitator.
Yeah, that's it. That was her. And I explained the same thing to her.
Yes.
She put the phone down on me.
Thank you. You then asked...
You had already said...
Sorry.
You had already had the opportunity to say what you wanted to say, so they had been told.
Yeah, but I want... Yeah, they knew. I wanted to talk. I needed to talk to the ward manager.
Yeah.
When you spoke to the ward manager, as I understand it...
I went down there.
You went there, of course. I'm so sorry. You were so concerned that you drove there. You did manage to speak to the ward manager. And I think, is this correct? You played the ward manager the recording you had taken of your call with
Yes.
Colin, where he was expressing those thoughts of dying.
I got to speak to her before I
Yes.
went there. I played it to her. No, he's fine. Da, 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 da. And he's not. But he could mask.
Yes.
And so then I went down and I had a meeting with her and the junior doctor.
Yes.
And we discussed it. And I said, you know, what will you do? She said, well, he's fine. He wasn't. He'd had all his bags packed. There was 4 in the bay. He was there ready to come.
Let me stop you there. I just want to check something because I'm looking, Melanie, at page 47 of your witness statement and paragraph 130. And there you tell us, and it may be an error, but you tell me that after you had played the recording to the ward manager, that ward manager agreed with you, in fact, that the ward was not a safe enough place for Colin to be in.
Yes, she did. Yeah. And she said, if he goes, I can't stop him.
I see.
Yeah.
So presumably,
She said all she could do was call security. He was on an elderly, a ward for the elderly, and
Yes.
let's have it as well. The ward was a COVID ward.
yes, and that was obviously a concern to you.
Oh,
The other thing that I think you were about to tell us is that when, after that meeting, you went to see Colin and he had packed his bags, he seemed to think that he was coming home, you were coming to take him home.
yes.
At some stage, he then, and I think you've explained this, he then became angry with you,
Yes,
such that you feared for your safety.
yes.
You decided to leave.
Yeah.
But before you did that, you went back to the ward manager and asked the ward manager to call security because you were in fear for his safety.
Say ask. She was there.
Yes?
Staff were all around, and this is because he knew he wasn't coming home with me, and I'd said, no, you're not coming home now. Oh, it was just awful, and he was going for me.
Yes.
So he pinched me, he grabbed me by the throat. So I just left. As I left, I shouted back, call security.
Yes.
She heard that clear as day.
Understood. Thank you. You received a call around about 10 minutes later
Yeah.
to tell you, and in fact what you were told in that first call was that he had fallen from a fire escape.
Yes.
It was later that you learnt that no such thing had occurred.
Yes.
And you went back to hospital.
Straight back.
You waited, and eventually, I think, were taken to see him in the resus area of A&E.
Yeah, I was sent to a side room, left there in a room with no windows, just to ponder what's going on. I think I lasted about 5 minutes of that, which seemed more like half an hour.
Yes.
Till I went looking for him. So I thought, you need to head to A&E.
Yeah.
En route, there was a man having a cigarette, and he said, someone's just fallen over that. And I went, what? So I was actually at the site where the fall was, where all the blood was, and they were sweeping the glass.
And you saw that while you were waiting there?
I saw all that. And you'll see there's a video of the area where he
Yes.
fell. I believe it was the director of nursing then arrived, and I was escorted to resus.
I see. Now, I'm going to move on, but they're obviously heavily interlinked, because what I have summarised as the second very important matter to note about this stay at Basildon was your extremely strong view that that incident and Colin's injuries were not treated appropriately, either in terms of the medical facts and what had happened to him and the severity of the injury, or as a learning point by the hospital. Is that fair?
Sorry, I was just say that again. I'm getting tired.
Of course
Sorry.
you are. Have you got some water?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it was a very long question. I'm going to do it in this way. Could you have a look with me, please, Melanie, at page 48 of your witness statement and paragraph 135? That tells us, in summary, and I just take you to it for you to have it in front of you, that the event was described in different ways by different people.
Oh, sorry, yes.
That's all right.
Yes.
And in particular, looking at page 49 and the second paragraph, that there was an absence of any initial analysis to determine whether any immediate actions to maintain patient safety were required or undertaken. That section of the incident report was left blank.
Right.
So here we're talking about learning for the hospital rather than Colin's injuries.
Yes.
We also see that the sections on the legal status of the patient and how staff involved were being supported was left blank. There's some reference in the records to a safeguarding alert being raised, but Nish saw no details of the outcome of that safeguarding alert. And then Nish also note that the duty of candour section did not include any information about whether an initial verbal apology had been offered to Colin or to you as his family.
No, there was nothing. I think you might come to it, but I'll say anyway, but just prior to this fall, he had been administered a drug that I had refused him to have.
Was that drug haloperidol?
It was.
What was the reason you had asked staff in particular not to prescribe that drug?
Because that was the drug that I believe led to my son's death.
Do you know what effect that drug had on Colin?
I saw the effect on Colin, and when he tried to walk, his legs were like robotic, very stiff. His muscles just locked up. Arms, legs, vision, confusion.
And that's
ugly drug.
your understanding was that that had been administered before and on the day of that incident on
I
the
know it
27th.
was administered just prior, and I had said that I didn't want it as power of attorney, and I was told over the phone that they had an MCA in place and it overrode my power of attorney. And I'm later here that on the records the doctor actually said it's not the partner's decision.
Yes. I want to try to take you forward, and on any view, in fact, Nish found that in the incident reports from the event, the level of harm was not recorded, but say, in our view, severe harm was evident. Now, you have told us in your witness statement, and I won't set it out in detail now, although we'll come to some of it, that you considered the injuries obviously severe. There were some delays, I think, in the decisions around whether or not urgent surgery needed to take place, and as far as you could see, that simply prolonged his suffering.
I stayed in resus beside him, calming him, watching blood seep through the wounds, watching the doctors arguing with each other as to who was going to do what and do nothing in the end. And so this was something like 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yes, on the 27th still.
Yeah, by 10 o'clock that night, I ended up in the booth next to Colin with an angina attack, so then treated both of us.
That was from stress, presumably.
Absolute stress, yeah.
Yes.
They were just discussing him, and I could just see his stomach getting bigger and bigger. They tried to put a band round to stop whatever was going on, and the band, they didn't have the right band that they needed to use. It was just like an elastic one, it popped off.
Yes.
And I remember just saying, I don't know what you're doing with Colin, but I got terrible pains in my chest, and that was me there in the bed. Anyway.
I understand. I'm going to stop you for a moment just to allow our transcriber
Sure.
to breathe and catch up. The surgery was carried out.
Not till I waited all night.
Yes.
It didn't get carried out till 20-something hours later.
Yes.
And when he finally went down for surgery, I was with Colin's son at the time. The boss of A&E came over and he just went, "Oh, well, he's gone down now. Sorry about that. Lessons learned and all that."
You described that as
That's it.
a blasé attitude at best.
That
I
was his
think.
apology for the delay.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
following his surgery, I think it's your evidence, Melanie, that his injury was worsened through inappropriate physical restraint that followed, because he was transferred after that surgery to, is it called Bulfan ward?
I was told he needed to go to ICU for 5 days, keep his legs straight. After I went home because I hadn't slept or whatever. I
went home to rest, presumably.
I then phoned the hospital to find out where he was, and he was lost for 5 hours. They had no idea where he was.
So he was lost in the system?
Yep.
Someone said that to you?
Yeah, I told that he would be on Osler ward. Osler ward said no, we had no beds. He's not in ICU, we got no beds. So yeah, we found him on Barfield ward.
Now, that ward, you describe some of the circumstances. I'm going to read to you a section of your witness statement which encapsulates it. I think during his stay on that ward, I would invariably find Colin in an absolutely appalling condition. He would be naked, sweating, distressed, and often lying on urine-soaked sheets. There never seemed to be enough staff on duty to look after him properly. I found myself having to take over a lot of his care needs as there simply weren't the staff around.
I more or less moved in.
On the weekend after his surgery, which was the weekend of Saturday the 31st of July into August, what you tell us is that you think you stopped at least 19 or 20 attempts to physically restrain Colin in circumstances that you considered utterly inappropriate.
Yeah, I can give an example.
Please do.
So Colin's laying in the bed and he's asleep. And obviously highly medicated. He'd wet himself. So that would then wake him. And he'd wake up confused and if I was there, it was, Carl, it's okay, I'm here. You've just wet yourself. Come on, let's get these clothes off, clean him, change bed sheets.
And that would be
If
enough.
staff had been there, it's like, Colin, no, and the next thing you know, he's being held down in the bed.
So what I think is this right? What you're saying is you made attempts to soothe, calm, reassure, orientate him in his surroundings,
Yes.
and de-escalate, but you consider that at the very least staff were extremely quick to escalate matters into something that required physical restraint.
And some of the security staff were good with him.
Yes.
In my presence. Out of my presence, I don't know. But there's a situation that I hope you'll get to.
So on the 3rd of August, you came to visit Colin, and you saw him, I think you want to tell us, at a particular...
Is this the Sunday night?
Yes.
So I'd been at the hospital all weekend. There'd been all sorts of chaos going on, which no doubt you'll cover. But the director of nursing was on the ward at that time, nursing Colin, and she told me that he had 3 staff for tonight, which is what he was meant to have, 1 for his mental, 1 for his physical, 1 for something else. Never happened.
3 staff as in 3 clinical staff?
Yeah, they wanted a nurse for his physical, a nurse for his mental, and a nurse or somebody for his heart.
Yes.
It never happened.
I see.
Yeah, they had 28 patients and 2 SRNs most nights.
Well, if 3 staff for Colin were wanted, tell us on that ward how many staff were normally allocated, as far as you could see, to his care.
If I was lucky, there may be 1, possibly 2, sometimes mental health, but they weren't nurses, they were most of them healthcare assistants.
Right.
Or student nurse.
Yes.
But, I mean, one night they sent somebody out, one of the girls, and she was probably no more than 6.5 stone, 4 foot tall. And I said, what are you doing here? She said, oh, I've come to work with Colin. I said, you've got no chance. I said, if he decides to get up and want to do something and leave,
Yes.
you can't do anything. I suggest you go and find your manager. She soon disappeared.
Were there also security staff at
Yes,
that
they
time?
would call security. So yeah,
There weren't security staff with him, as there had been on Bardfield Ward.
Pardon?
There weren't security staff with him, as there had been on
No,
Bardfield.
they were called.
Understood. Could you take us? I'm so sorry, I
back
don't
to
want
Sunday.
to miss it, so that
Yeah.
we don't. You and I don't.
So I was told, yeah, we've got 3 staff tonight. Go home.
Yes.
You need to rest for my mental health as well. So I got in the car. I drove 10 minutes. I couldn't drive. I was so tired. But there's another mum who lost her daughter in this inquiry, and I phoned.
Take your time.
I'd never met her, but we'd been talking, and I just said, you live close to the hospital, I'm in this situation, I can't drive home. Can I come round? Of course you can. So I drove to her house, which was another 10 minutes rather than an hour drive home.
Yes.
And it was something like 8 o'clock, I don't know. We had a cup of coffee, and of course we get chatting, and I'm having another cup of coffee and chatting and another cup of coffee, and gets to like 11 o'clock, and she said, well, the bed's upstairs, go and have a sleep. I said, I can't sleep, I'm going back to the hospital.
Yes.
So I turn up unannounced. I walk into the ward, and I walk down the corridor, and it's pitch black.
I'm just going to ask you to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Everyone's asleep. There's nobody in the nurses' station. And I turn into Colin's room, and there's no curtains pulled, no blanket, but there's the bed at 45 degrees. And Colin's, like, at the end of it, struggling to get out. He's completely naked. The sheets are all down. They're all soaking wet. And there was one security guard there and one security guard there, both with COVID masks on, both with their arms crossed, just watching him struggle. I don't know how long they'd had him like that.
Yes.
I screamed, and I screamed for the ward sister,
Yes.
and she appeared. They promptly shot off.
Leaving Colin and security staff where they were.
No, the security guard shot off.
I see.
I screamed, get that bed up, and they put it back up straight.
Yes.
They had him trapped,
I understand.
totally trapped. Bed rails were up. He had no pillow behind him. It was just him screaming out in the dark.
Yes.
It wasn't long after that, I cleaned him, and one of the healthcare assistants come in and assisted
Yes.
with making the bed. And it wasn't long after that his stomach started to grow.
I think, in fact, the next day, which was the Monday, the 4th of August, you tell us about an incident where the level of restraint used and that you witnessed, in fact, on that occasion was such that the massive hematoma burst.
I didn't leave his side.
Yes.
I remember... I might get a little bit muddled, but
That's all right.
I'm being told that Colin's going for an operation. Where are we with that? Is that at this time?
Yes, it's around about the same time. You were
Right.
thinking that there was going to be a second procedure.
Yeah.
So you were expecting possibly a transfer to ITU.
Right.
But this is the particular day, Melanie, just to assist you, when what you tell us is that he became extremely agitated because he was so thirsty, so he was nil by mouth.
Yes, that was it. I was
Yes.
told he was going for an operation. He got a hematoma where literally this lump appeared. It was like a head, and it was getting bigger and bigger. And oh my God! And he was. I just said he's got an infection. I remember the mental health team turning up.
Yes.
I'd been asking from 6 a.m. He needs to see a doctor. He's got infection. He's got infection. He's got infection. The ward team will come. The mental health team turned up at the door, and I literally put myself in the door and said, what are you doing? We're coming to do an assessment. I said, you're not. He needs a doctor. He has infection.
I'm going to stop you and slow you down only because
Yeah.
I want to ensure that everyone is completely clear on the sequence of events.
Yeah.
So just before this incident, or in the days before this incident where Colin was restrained in such a way that hematoma burst, and he was then, in any event, transferred to ITU. Mm-hmm. What had happened was that you had been told that he was medically fit for discharge, but that he needed to be reviewed by mental health teams first. Yeah. Yes? When mental health teams attended the ward to carry out their review, you tell us that you prevented their access to Colin because, in your view, he was simply not fit to undergo any kind of mental health assessment. Is that right?
I was convinced he had an infection.
Yes.
He could not walk.
Yes.
They assured me that they hadn't had any falls on their ward, which I knew was a lie. And I said, he cannot go to the toilet on his own.
Yes.
What
about his mental state at that time?
Confused. He couldn't. The medication, they told me he was having an operation. He had been put on copious amounts of midazolam,
Yes.
haloperidol, lorazepam, Oromorph,
Yes.
morphine. I might have missed out a couple,
I understand.
but it was just being given at full amounts that they could give.
Yes.
And I remember when eventually the doctor did come and said, am I a nurse? He doesn't have an infection. He has a hematoma and it's warm to the touch.
Yes.
As you'd say, he was restrained. I was...
Now, that was because that was on the 4th, and I think what you tell us is that he was so thirsty.
Oh.
He'd seen a sink in the corridor and he tried to get up to get to it.
He did.
What happened?
He literally, as much as he could walk, like the zombie state he was in, he dived for that sink.
Yes.
And he was literally pulled off it and restrained on the floor. It got that bad. There were so many people. It was chaos.
Hang on. So he was restrained on the floor by security staff.
Yes. 3
Did
people.
they happen, forgive me, just so that did they happen to be nearby or somebody called them?
They were already there.
They were already there.
Yeah. There was 3 of them, held him down for an hour and a half.
Yes.
While senior directors of the trust came onto the ward, surgeons, and had a discussion in a back room as to what they were going to do next.
And during those discussions, you watched security staff holding your 81-year-old partner on the floor for a period of more than an hour.
Hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
Yeah.
At the end of that period, I understand that the way that you describe it is that Colin curled up in a ball in the corner of the room and eventually fell asleep.
There was a situation where they took him back to the room and he was just so angry, and the director of nursing actually locked him in the room. But in this in-between, while the restraint was going on, she got engineers down to remove the sink from his room.
Yes.
So there was no access to water. But all the time I'm being told, no water, no water, no water, because he's going for an operation. He's going for an operation.
I understand.
I later find out that was a complete lie.
There wasn't ever, you later found, to be a second procedure.
No. So he's being given all this medication, no water,
Yes.
no food, and being restrained, and he was full of infection.
When eventually that incident of restraint came to an end, in fact, a hoist had to be brought to get Colin back into bed. Yes.
He curled up on the floor, yep. He was hoisted back onto the bed. At that point, I went out to get a bottle of water. I come back and someone was just putting a sticky tape over his tummy. And he looked up and...
Surgical tape?
Like a gauze. And he looked up and he's like, because he was so drugged, like, and they go, no, don't pull it off, Colin. Don't pull it off. And he pulled it off. And it was like cottage cheese blood pouring out of him.
I understand. So the hematoma had burst and he was transferred to ITU.
On restraint.
I want to just note something before we move on, please, to the third very important incident that occurred at Basildon. I just want to note that there came a time, I think on the 25th of August, when you noticed and reported, and this is while Colin was in ITU, 3 separate members of staff sleeping whilst on duty.
Yes.
One of those was the person who was assigned to look after Colin.
Yes.
You notified staff of what you had seen.
One was on a daytime, on a Saturday,
I see.
asleep beside the bed.
Yes.
The others came into the family room where I was trying to rest.
Yes.
And, yeah, I was told, well, they get an hour's break. Well, that's fine. But they were there longer than an hour, each of them.
Yes.
Yes, I did report it. And then my visiting, I'd been going and staying in ICU hours whenever I wanted. And I was reduced to, well, the whole family was reduced, one person each day for an hour.
Did that take place immediately after
Yes.
you reported
Yes.
those matters?
Yes.
So it applied to the whole family, and it was previously what had been the case. You could go in, and also so could Colin's children, and
Yes.
for a number of hours.
Yes.
You consider, I think, that that was a punishment for
Absolutely.
the complaint that you made.
Yes.
I'm going to move, please, to the 1st of September and to an MDT that you now know took place on that day.
Where are we? 5th September.
The 1st of September.
Right.
I'm going to take you to it in your statement, because I'm aware, Melanie, both for those listening and for you, that we're going through an awful lot of material as best we can. What I want to try to ensure is that we cover all of the key matters you want to raise. If you look, please, at page 67 of your witness statement and paragraph 185.
Yep.
You now know that an MDT had taken place that day, during which ITU staff had agreed that it was not in Colin's best interest to escalate treatment, and that his resuscitation status would need to be reviewed. Yes?
Yep.
You didn't know that on the day. That was relayed to you the following day, the 2nd of September. If we continue looking there, and this is from the niche report, we are told that the ITU team met with you and with Colin's children. It was explained that their view was that it wasn't any longer in his best interest to remain in ICU, as their support was no longer required, and that he would benefit from transfer to a side room. Sorry, I keep hitting the microphone. You objected to that because you felt that he was safer on ITU. Is that because of the experiences you have described with Colin held in a side room at Broomfield?
No, because how he'd been treated on the wards in Basildon.
I see. There was also a discussion, the niche report tells us, between you about you voicing your very strong feelings that actually a hospice or a home would be preferable.
Yes.
And in the end, the consultant, although still saying that he should be moved from ITU, did acknowledge that hospice services might be a possibility.
Yeah, the, I don't know who she was, one of the senior managers was to phone around the hospice to see if one was available for him. To my best of my knowledge, she did nothing.
Yes. There was a referral to the palliative care team, I think, on the 2nd of September. We can see that if you want to look at it at paragraph 187 on page 68 of your witness statement.
Yes, and you know what they said to me? He's not ill enough for us.
Yes. So the palliative care team told you then that he wasn't at that stage.
Yes.
And what you learned, I think after it had happened, was that on Friday the 3rd, Colin was transferred back to Bullfan ward, where he had come into ITU from.
Yes.
To your dismay, I think, because you had understood that there were going to be arrangements for a home
Yes.
or hospice services.
Yes.
During that period, I understand that there were very poor communications with you, to your mind, about what was going to take place and why. You felt very strongly that your own views and rights, as you describe them, were overridden or ignored. And you also tell us about a decision, a medical decision, or medical advice that you have learned about to provide certain anticipatory drugs, even though palliative care teams had said he's not at that stage. Do you remember this?
Yes.
And what in fact happened, you discovered?
When?
I'm so sorry. So if you have a look, please, Melanie, at page 69. And at the top paragraph, what happened was that a specialist palliative care nurse advised prescribing anticipatory drugs to minimise symptoms.
So what day are we on here?
We're still...
I remember he got moved to Barfield Ward again. I never left his side. I stayed there in that room.
Do you mean Bullfan Ward?
Yes.
Yes.
I stayed there.
Yes.
It might be a mistake, but it might not. Overnight, from leaving ICU to arriving on Bullfan Ward, he was so sunken in his cheeks. And I said, how come he's lost so much weight? And one of the nurses did say to me, they've given him flutamide. They must have done. And it's a diuretic. And my belief is because the palliative care team had said, oh no, he's not ill enough for us, so let's make him look ill enough. And honestly, he was sucked in.
Now, hang on.
So,
I want to just... I'm sorry to stop you.
Yeah. Now we've come in, they're going to do an assessment. Is that where you're at?
Yes. If you look, please, at page 70, what you tell us is that there was a meeting, and this is the 2nd of September, Melanie. No, it's not. Ignore me. It was the 3rd. So this meeting took place on the 3rd of September. And at that meeting, I want to summarise it because I'm keen that you don't lose the chance to explain all of the failings you want to raise. Some matters that clinicians felt should take place were presented to you as a fait accompli, and you said no. No to palliative care.
Look, twice I was told Colin was in coma. One in ICU, they said he's in a coma. The same doctor, he's in a coma, he's not going to come round. We're going to have to put him to the side, turn the machine off. I said, he's not in a coma.
Yes.
Said, he's in a coma. And I went down to Colin's ear and I said, Colin, open your eyes. And he just did nothing. And I swore at him. Told him there was a nurse. Oh, that was another time. There was a nurse at the end of it. He smiled. But this time, he opened his eyes.
Yes.
And the 3 doctors just disappeared.
Yes.
Walked off. Now, at this stage again, they've moved him to Barfield Ward. He's now off all their meds. He comes round.
Yes.
I'm playing him messages from people. He's acknowledged them. He's not argumentative. He's not violent. He is so sweet and so kind. And then the cull starts with different morphine. And
that's what I think you were trying to resist.
I didn't want none of it. No morphine, no midazolam.
All right, bear with me. So what then occurred is that although doctors seemed to you to, you've described it as, it appeared to you that doctors were intent on ignoring your opinions, what occurred, I think, first, and
so now we had the meeting.
2 events, that you were told that Colin was going to be made end of life. You raised all of your objections and all of your arguments, and an agreement was reached that evening that no decision about that would be made until the following day, to allow you to have a chance to rest and to think matters over.
Yeah, I left I think the meeting ended 5 o'clock Friday night, and I was coming back in Saturday morning with my decision.
Yes.
Whether they were going to remove the fluids and the feed.
Yes. And as it turned out, when you got home on that Friday evening, you found that you couldn't rest.
And I went back again.
And you went back to the hospital to find, I think...
It had already been done.
That fluids and feeds had already been removed.
Yep.
The next thing that happens, if we go to the weekend, is that there are further discussions about the right pathway for Colin and the palliative care pathway and what should and shouldn't be done. And as I understand it, you continue to raise your objections in the way that you have described.
Well, I was obviously requesting his fluids and that to be put back on. He still had a nasal pipe in, which I understand CPN or something they called it.
Yes.
They asked a duty doctor, and he said, "Oh, I'll do nothing because I don't know whether I should or not." And it wasn't till 2 o'clock the next day, finally, I was told he can have a bag of fluid. It was put on the slowest rate,
Yes.
but I'd watched him all that time dehydrating. He
Yes.
was just disappearing in front of me.
Now, by the 5th, you tell us that what you describe as the excessive medication regime had resumed, and you know now that at 8:30 a.m. on the 5th of September, he was given 5 milligrams of midazolam, and then by 4:40, and this is from the notes, or your summary of the notes, he was reviewed on the ward round where it was noted that he was unrousable and his pupils were constricted and non-reactive. And
I
you
think-
say, go ahead.
He was given copious amounts of morphine during the night. Are you going to talk about that?
Go ahead.
And his CV line?
We're going to come to that.
Right, okay.
In effect, on the 5th, you considered that he had been given a morphine overdose. Is that right?
It's actually been proved that's the case.
I do want to come to the CV line because what you tell us is that after the midazolam in the morning and the records that show that he was unrousable at 4:40, a further 5 milligrams of morphine was administered at 6 p.m. and another 5 milligrams at 6:25 p.m. You, by that time, have told us you were not leaving his side, and you lay down on a mattress by his bed to try to get some rest.
I think you're a day out.
Do you think? Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So my recollection is, and I might be a day out, but
It doesn't matter too much.
I haven't left
Tell
his
us
side.
what happened.
So I'm tired.
Yes.
And yes, they brought me a mattress in, so it's there. And
Just very
it's
briefly,
probably about midnight. I lay down on the mattress. It might
Melanie,
be-
I'm so sorry, I may have confused matters. The key point is, whatever day it was,
Right.
by
What
that-
happened?
By that point,
Okay.
agreement had not been reached, or you had not, in your
No.
mind, consented for him to move to end-of-life care or for feed and fluids to be removed.
Absolutely not.
Right, so
Yes.
tell us what happened in the early hours of that morning.
Yeah, so I lay down beside the bed and I can't get to sleep. I'm just drowsing. The lights are all off. There's just a light in the corridor.
Slow down a little bit, please, if you can.
And so I'm here, Colin's there, and his leg slips off the bed. So I'm tired, I just pushed it up there. And it come off again. So I had to stand up on the mattress, and I stand up and there's 4 people. And it's the ward manager, 2 nurses, and a mental health nurse. The mental health nurse has been sitting on a chair opposite the bed doing a one-to-one. It's pitch black. There's just a light on in the corridor. And nobody said anything. And they looked at me, I looked at them, and the ward manager, she just leant over and she wiped his neck and she put gauze. And I noticed the CV line was in the hand of the mental health nurse. And the 4 of them all looked at me and then about turned and went out the door.
All 4 of them.
Yeah. The mental health nurse came back in, and if I tell you I was scared of her, I was scared of her. And I was just in shock. Didn't know what to do. And by then Colin was overdosed, he was out of it.
Is it the case, Melanie, that one of those members of staff turned to you before leaving the room, you tell us, and said to you that Colin had pulled out the central line himself?
Yeah, not possible. He was just... Since I read then, so what happened after that, I understand that 10 minutes before that event, they'd given him morphine.
Yes.
And then a nurse come in about an hour later, and she just went, liver like that, stab into his leg, walked out, and then another. It was clearly an hour later. It says came in and done it again, and I'm like, what are you doing? This happened 4 times. The records show it happened twice. It happened 4 times.
And you know that because you saw it, is what you
I
said.
actually I got to my computer and wrote an email to Claire Paniker. What are they doing? And I
Yeah.
listed the times that I'd seen it being administered. At that point, I went out in the morning, toilet break, cigarette break, I don't know. I came back and his eyes were in the back of his head. He was sweating profusely.
Yes.
His mouth was pierced, and that's when I understand midazolam had then been given. At no time was Colin agitated. At no time was he screaming. At no time. And the morphine and midazolam was just being given needlessly.
I think somewhere you describe it as a machine, just a machine of sedation that went on and on.
Horrendous. Yeah.
I think those events that you've just described, is this right, were the final trigger for you to seek to take Colin home?
I wanted him home anyway. You know, we
course you
couldn't
did.
go to a hospice. He wanted to go home. And yes, that's what I'd been trying to do. By then, on the weekend, they also took out the nasal feed. So
Yes.
that's all gone. It's all
Yes.
gone. If he'd pulled it out himself, there would have been, the stitches were in there. He would have ripped his skin. There would have been blood. There was nothing.
You saw none of
They
that?
took it out.
Yes.
And you
And-
saw no endeavour to, after the incident that you described.
To put it back in.
No, you never saw any endeavour to put it back in.
I asked. I was told couldn't be done. No, we can't put it back in. I listened and I believed. They then put a matron on the ward. I could only say that this woman was a bully. I was already low anyway. She had me down like that. You cannot come out this room. Do not go to the nurse's station. You want something, you push the button.
Yes.
I was left in that room with Colin alone.
Yes.
He had stoma bags that just filled with poo. He was not moved. He was
Yes.
not turned. I was trying to do that alone.
Yes.
One angel came in, a Macmillan nurse. I'll be forever grateful to that girl. She spent probably half an hour with me, but at that time, Colin was going to die there. There was no way I was going to get him home.
You had accepted, you that's what you thought by then?
And if
Yes.
she hadn't come in, I was going to die there too. I'd worked it all out. I was going in that room with him. It was just, my life was over at that point. And that little angel came in.
That was a Macmillan nurse.
Yes.
And as I understand it, the difference was
She was the one person that gave me any compassion in this whole journey.
that she gave you
Yeah.
compassion and she
one
listened to
person.
you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
In
then it
terms-
was her that put the wheels in motion for me to bring Colin home.
For you to bring Colin home,
Yes.
I understand. I just want to note that niche investigators in their report, what you tell us is that in relation to that incident you've described of seeing Colin's central line being removed by staff, the reporting of the incident, you tell us at paragraph 215 of your statement, is muddled and confusing in the extreme, and that the niche investigators were not able to get to the bottom of it.
No. And on the Monday morning, I was called into a meeting with the doctors and nurses, whatever, whoever was there. And I remember the opening words from the doctor. So we decided not to put his lines back in. And I went, what, you mean you could? And he went, yes, but we decided not to. And with that, I ended up outside the room having a panic attack. And the meeting continued without me.
I understand. I want to take you now, just to ensure that we've covered them all, to a summary of other matters that you noted or other failings that were clear to you during the period that Colin spent at Basildon. I don't think we need to go to them in your statement, but if you want me to stop and you want to expand on something, please say so. A number of transfers, and I mean internal transfers between wards, took place in the very early hours of the morning without there being any apparent clinical need for that to happen.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that at the time, so.
But you know now
Oh, yeah.
that you know it now, and you also know that, as you put it, I think, that that's in breach of guidance, particularly where dementia care is involved.
Yep.
Because it's unsettling.
Yes.
Obviously. We've covered a number of matters about absconsions and the absconsion risk, the care or lack thereof and treatment for Colin's wounds and medical injuries following the incident on the 27th of July. You've referred to it very briefly, but I want to note that it's the case, I think, that throughout Colin's stay at Basildon, you repeatedly raised safeguarding concerns with social services, yes?
Yes.
The police?
Yes.
Various staff at the trust, including the CEO.
Yes.
Can you tell me in summary, as far as you are aware, what action resulted from any of the concerns you raised in that regard?
Nothing. Everyone ignored me. Nobody would take any responsibility for anything.
One of the other matters you raise, and we have touched on it, but I just want to be clear about it, is that, because this was one of the safeguarding concerns that you raised at the time, is that you were told by a member of staff that they were struggling to look after Colin on Bullfan Ward, that they were not trained mental health professionals,
Yep.
and that they were struggling to deal with it themselves.
Yep, and they had escalated it as far as they could go, and they didn't know what to do.
Yes. One of the other things you've referred to, or it's come across very strongly in your evidence, is that you had to do something of a nursing role because of a lack of staff, or a lack of staff who were taking what you saw as adequate care of Colin. And I think it's the case, isn't it, that the niche report is very critical of the reliance, or is critical, I should say, of the reliance on you to carry out that role.
Not the critical of me doing it, but,
No.
but the fact that I was having to because there was no one there to do it.
I'm so sorry, absolutely. The criticism specifically is of the use of a family member
Yeah.
to try to achieve safe staffing levels.
Yes.
Basic hydration and nutritional needs were not attended to. One of the things that you tell us is that, I think you describe it as a last act of love, that when you got Colin home, one of the things that you did was to wash him and clean him and empty the stoma bags and do all of the things that had not been being done.
Yes.
You also, just returning very briefly to medication, tell us that to your horror, there came a date when, despite wearing a wristband to alert staff to the fact that he was allergic to penicillin,
Yes.
that drug was administered to Colin.
Yeah. On the day of restraint, I watched the director of nursing cut off the band that said penicillin on it,
Yes,
and then not long after he was administered. He was allergic to penicillin.
yes. It caused him, I think, to hallucinate.
Yes.
It caused some physical effects, and also, I would think, added very substantially to his then agitation and confusion and very poor
He
mental
was
state.
hallucinating as well anyway then because of the infection that he didn't have but did have.
Yes. The other thing that you have discovered is that, in fact, at the time, unbeknownst to you and any other visitors, he had a hospital-acquired infection,
Yeah.
which was contagious and had gone undetected.
Nobody told us.
Nobody told you until much later, is that right?
I didn't find out till I received the discharge sheet.
Yes.
And having took him home, I never left his side. We held him, we kissed him, we loved him right till the end.
Of course.
And we didn't know that we were all at risk.
You are extremely concerned, I think, and I'm going to invite you to summarise this if you can, not only from what you lived through with Colin, but from your knowledge of the experiences of other families. You're extremely concerned at what you see as the overuse of sedative and tranquilising drugs like midazolam, and you consider that those drugs accelerated Colin's death in a very substantial way.
I'd like to say something on that, if I may.
Please do.
Yeah. Obviously, the internet is a great source of information, and midazolam and morphine has been cited in hundreds of thousands of deaths. The press, I'd like to ask them why they're not speaking out about it. And I think it's important. Yes, that drug is horrendous. I saw it paralyse him. I saw his mouth pierce into the circle where he was just labouring for each breath. And on my way home in the ambulance, I was just willing him to breathe, keep going, one breath, you know, and another. And his mouth didn't move for the last 3 days. It was pierced, and you knew that that drug had accelerated his death. Now, my father, I just nursed him for the last 2.5 months of his life.
Yes.
With nurses coming in, and I refused that drug. What happened to my dad, where he died, was a very slow process of 8 weeks.
Yes.
And I watched the gradual decline of that man. What happened to Colin, to where my dad got, took 4 days.
Yes, I understand.
It hastened his death that much.
An unnaturally hastened decline, I
Yeah.
think is what you're saying. You consider the use of those types of drugs to sedate to be a systemic issue in mental health and beyond, is that right?
Not just mental health. This is euthanasia.
Melanie, looking at the time, I am aware that you have some closing words with which you would like to address the chair, and also that there is a video with some further photos
Sure.
of Colin. And what I think we're going to do, as long as you're content to do that now, you're going to address the chair, then we're going to ask for the video to be played, and then you just have a very few further words in closing.
Sure.
So when you are ready, please go ahead.
So I just want to check that everything that I wanted
You
to
take
cover
your
has
time.
been covered. There was just one thing I wanted to say, and you might
Please.
want to cut it off, but it's the truth.
Yes?
The period just prior to his stomach bursting, and I'm telling the doctor he's got infection, they wanted to take him off to the psych ward. It was a bank holiday Monday, a weekend. They had no staff. They didn't want him on the ward.
Yes.
And they knew that. So that's why I'd said I would stay. Now, at the end of that day, so he's not got infection, his stomach bursts, and now he's taken to ICU.
Yes.
When he arrives in ICU, the body map there shows green pus coming out of his penis. If that man hasn't got an infection and he was coughing up green phlegm,
Yes.
I just wanted to make that point quite clear.
Because infection was what you had been pressing for someone to look for all along.
Yeah. And it's medication, shut him up.
Yes.
Anyway.
Melanie, take your
okay.
time, and when you're ready.
Yeah. Well, there was one point here about the niche thing. It was a very good report,
Yes?
but same as all of them, the recommendations were advisory only, with no mechanism to ensure change or accountability.
I understand, and for you,
Yeah.
that's a major limitation because it's a report without teeth,
Absolutely.
without the power to do something. Is that what you mean?
All of them are. So anyway, thank you. Chair, the inquiry asks for recommendations. That's why it brings me onto this bit. But at this stage, I do not feel in the position to provide a properly considered and comprehensive response. As the inquiry is aware, Colin's inquest is scheduled for August 2026, and I believe the evidence that will come out during those proceedings must inform what I place before the inquiry. I intend to provide joint recommendations in the name of both my son Matthew Leahy and my late partner Colin Flatt. Their cases are deeply connected. Both reveal systemic failings across physical health, mental health, safeguarding and accountability. Only when both processes have concluded will I be in a position to present considered recommendations that honour them properly. But I can already say this. I've seen too many inquiries make strong recommendations that go nowhere. Promises made, reports written, and nothing changes. Families like mine are left to watch the same tragedies repeat. So, while I fully support the creation of the Recommendations and Implementation Forum, I can't help but wonder how it will make sure its voice is truly heard and not just noted and forgotten. For that reason, I would like to formally request to be part of this forum to help ensure the voices of families and lived experience are represented, and that lessons are not only learned but acted upon and ultimately implemented across our nation. If this inquiry is to mean anything, it must deliver real, lasting change. Change that saves lives, restores trust, and ensures that what happened to Matthew, to Colin, and to the thousands across the nation who have been failed so needlessly never happens again. After Colin's inquest has concluded, I would like to be given the opportunity to return and provide all evidence again, so that the inquiry can hear directly from me in light of the findings that emerged during those proceedings. Only then will I be able to present a complete picture, one that truly reflects and honours Colin. I've just made a small video, if you could play that now for me.
If we could have that now,
Thank you.
please.
They said they would care for me, but they didn't. I was left alone, drugged, silenced, forgotten. My pain ignored, my rights erased. They failed me. They failed their duty. But I mattered. I still matter. Justice will come, and truth will be heard. For Colin, forever remembered. Before I close, I want to sincerely thank you for allowing me to speak today and for the compassion and commitment you've shown in leading this ongoing inquiry. I've made a submission regarding my son Matthew Leahy for your consideration, and I've passed it to the
To a
hearing
member of the
manager.
inquiry team.
Yeah.
Yes.
And finally, I'd like to thank the inquiry team for your hard work, sensitivity and dedication throughout this process. Your professionalism and compassion have made it possible for families like mine to be heard, and that means more than words can say. Thank you.
Well, I would like to thank you very much indeed. I know that coming today will have involved an enormous amount of preparation and forethought, and both that process and today will not have been easy for you, so I'm very, very grateful. And I'd like to add my thanks to my inquiry team for their dedication too.
Thank you.
Chair, thank you. We'll take a short break now for 5 to 10 minutes to see if there are any other questions for Melanie, and if not, that will conclude your evidence for today, and we'll sit again tomorrow at 10.